Let us all welcome our Master of Ceremonies, broadcast journalist, Karen Davila.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. This afternoon, we celebrate the art and life of the beloved artist, Betsy Westendorp, as we launch a retrospective exhibition titled Passages, composed of over 100 artworks spanning more than 60 years of Betsy's illustrious painting career. Now, these paintings currently fill the ground floor galleries of the Metropolitan Museum of Manila. For today's program, we will be viewing a short biographical video of the artist and be led on a 3D guided tour of the exhibition. We are fortunate indeed that Betsy, who recently turned 93 last December, is here with us this afternoon. We will also have the privilege of interviewing her later in the program following the virtual tour. Now, to lead the invocation, let us welcome Brother Raimundo Suplido, President of De La Salle University, Manila, one of the institutions who graciously lent us one of the artist's works from their collection. Brother Raymond.
Thank you, Karen. Let us remember that God, our loving Father, is with us. Heavenly Father, from whom all good gifts and blessings flow, look upon your sons and daughters gathered in your presence. We thank you for bringing us together by different means, for blessing our minds, hearts, and souls with sensitivity, warmth, and compassion to appreciate beauty around us, in nature, and in the lives of our brothers and sisters. We bless you for the talents you implant, nurture, and bring to fruition in us, especially the artists in our midst. We give you praise for the person of Betsy Westendorp, who, by her persevering efforts, has brought to our world wondrous expressions of her artistic gifts and talents. Faithful to her inner urgings and inspirations, she has blessed our world with color, beauty, value, and meaning. As we come together for this special occasion, Father, send us your Spirit to deepen our love and appreciation for these works of art. Touch our minds, hearts, and souls in spite of this pandemic to find beauty, goodness, love, and truth in the different subjects we encounter. May we grow to be the persons, families, and communities pleasing to you, Father. This we humbly pray through Jesus, your Son and our brother, who with you and the Holy Spirit live forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you very much, Brother Raimundo Suplido. God bless you too, brother. And now to deliver the opening address, we would like to introduce Joselito Campos Jr., the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Metropolitan Museum of Manila. Mr. Campos, good afternoon.
Thank you for the introduction, Karen. The Metropolitan Museum of Manila is proud to present the retrospective exhibition Passages, celebrating the artistic journeys of Betsy Westendorp. This exhibition pays tribute to the beloved artist and presents a gathering of works that spans 6 decades of Miss Westendorp's artistic practice. This occasion marks a deserved retrospective for the Spanish Filipino artist, one of the very few times an expatriate is hosted and honored in the museum's premier galleries at the ground floor. The title Passages makes reference to many possible things. It could mean the pathways traversed in an artist's career, the act of moving from one place to the next, or it can be a selection, choice, or extract from a body of work to drive specific points. We see these references in the themes the artist has chosen to explore in her paintings, her signature floral paintings, her loving portraits of friends and patrons over time, and in her striking landscapes, seascapes, and cloudscapes, all of which are featured in this collection. These possibilities and themes resonate deeply with the museum as passages comes at a very important time of transition, reflection, and transformation. The Board of Trustees of the Metropolitan Museum of Manila wholeheartedly supports this endeavor as we usher in a new year in 2021 and as we open a new chapter for our institution. The museum is immensely grateful and appreciative of the support that our sponsors, collectors, and partners have graciously given to us in preparation for this exhibit. We also thank the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, headed by Governor Benjamin Diokno, for supporting this exhibit and for its partnership of more than 44 years with the Metropolitan Museum of Manila. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Butch. We now welcome the president of the Metropolitan Museum of Manila, Tina Colaiko, who will also deliver her opening message and share with us how the museum and committee have put together this significant retrospective. Tina, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Karen, and thank you very much. So the Metropolitan Museum of Manila and its Board of Trustees are extremely delighted that you are all here to join us for the virtual launch and opening today of Passages, celebrating the life and art of Betsy Westendorp. We are especially honored to have the artist herself and her daughter Carmen grace us with their presence for our first ever remote virtual exhibition opening. It is this exhibition, which pays tribute to Miss Betsy Westendorp, that has taken significant nuances from the time we started preparations in January 2019. The scheduled opening for May 2020, of course, has been canceled in the midst of a pandemic lockdown. But as we all adapted to the new norms and museums explored other ways of sharing art and reaching audiences, we found new hybrid formats and new possibilities that emerged so that we are now all here to pay tribute to the artistic journeys of Betsy Westendorp. We were able to gather more than 100 works under the curatorial direction of Mr. Dannie Alvarez, and of course made possible through the generosity of lenders, sponsors, and friends. We are very grateful to all of them, and we are very thankful to the retrospective committee headed by architect Emmanuel Miñana, together with members Denise Miñana, Silvana Diaz, Cid Reyes, the author of the exhibition catalogue, Brother Ray Suplido of the De La Salle University, and David Bayot of the DLSU Publishing House. This committee provided the dynamic energy in the fruition of this project. Under the current limiting circumstances, we thought of ways of how best to experience the retrospective physically and remotely. So we came up with different components of the retrospective, and we produced a printed catalog with an electronic version, which will have a separate launch in a couple of weeks, a 3D virtual tour, which will highlight our event this afternoon, and a biographical video of the artist, which we will now share with you. Here is a video which will give us glimpses and highlights of the life and art of the artist we honor today with a retrospective.
The retrospective exhibition entitled Passages at the Metropolitan Museum of Manila is a tribute to Betsy Westendorp and her distinguished career as an artist in Spain and in the Philippines. Miss Westendorp, who recently turned 93, has journeyed through a life full of both triumphs and tragedies, surrounded by love and sustained by her consummated passion for her art. Her life story begins on December 14, 1928, in the small village of Aravaca, just 9 kilometers from the center of Madrid, Spain. Betsy's father, Carlos Westendorp, who was of Spanish-Dutch heritage, and her mother, Isabel Cabeza, named her after a grand-aunt, Betsy Westendorp Oshek, who was also an artist. Growing up, Betsy was sketching and drawing most of the time with her crayons, pencils, and paints. She slowly discovered her gift and talent in capturing the likeness of people. Not surprisingly, her first subjects were the family members, who endured the many sittings with Betsy. Her mother and protective grandmother preferred she was tutored by professional artists in their own home. Later on, she would be allowed to attend studio classes of well-known portrait painters. At age 21, Betsy met and fell in love with a Spanish Filipino named Antonio Brias. After a whirlwind courtship, they were married in 1951. Antonio brought his new bride to the Philippines in the same year. Thus began the life of Betsy Westendorp in the Philippines, her adopted country. Betsy and Antonio Brias were blessed with 3 beautiful daughters, Isabel, Sylvia, and Carmen. As Betsy settled in her new home in Manila, she would continue to paint and do charming portraits of her friends. She would later receive prestigious commissions from local prominent persons in business and politics, as well as renowned personalities who admired her elegant style of painting. What launched Betsy's career as a portraitist in Europe was her first portrait of the young Felipe VI, second in line to the Spanish throne, after his father, then Príncipe de España, Juan Carlos. Betsy was invited in 1970 by then Philippine ambassador to Spain, Luis Gonzalez, and his wife, Vicky Quirino, daughter of former President Elpidio Quirino, to hold an exhibition of her works as part of the Philippine Week celebrations in Madrid. It was then that she was introduced to Spanish royalty, who asked her to do several portraits for the royal family.
One critic, when commenting about my painting, he said, "They are only flowers." You know, flowers is one of the most beautiful creatures in the world. So why say it's only a flower? Oh my goodness, only a flower. That's a wonder.
Apart from portraiture, another defining theme of Betsy Westendorp's art is her flowers. Her first subjects were the roses and carnations that were gifted to her. Eventually, she painted her flowers en plein air, outdoors, on the spot, where they actually grew. Betsy has always believed that, just like getting to know a person, she needed to be in the presence of her floral subjects. Betsy's first orchid paintings were inspired by a visit to a greenhouse in Madrid called Bourguignon. Betsy loved even more the many tropical species of orchids that grow all over the Philippines. It was the late Elena Flores, the distinguished Spanish critic, who christened the heretofore prosaic series Cloudscapes with something that transcended the visible world. Flores ascribed the series the label Atmosferografias, In the words of Flores, a celestial panorama of its atmospheric state to an artist who knows how to interpret it. Clouds that collide in a mysterious commotion of colors, siennas, blues, dark and light, crimsons, mauves, greens, ochres, golds. They have phantasmagoric shapes, fleeting, dense, evanescent, lightweight, changing in their constant and surprising movement. There are sunrises and sunsets, with the decline of light among the mist, the reflections of the sky on the sea. At several points in her life, Betsy has had her share of personal tragedy. Her husband Antonio died in 1976. In 2007, the death of her grandson, Ian, brought such deep grief and sadness for Betsy. In 2016, she received the heartbreaking news of the death of her daughter Isabel. Betsy turned to her art again and again to transmute all her losses and her pain, and produced a series of large atmosferographias. One of these works she titled Passage, a transitioning of life into another. She has since donated this work to the Instituto Cervantes de Manila. The Philippine government has acknowledged the important contribution of Betsy Westendorp to the enrichment of Philippine art by bestowing on her the Presidential Award of Merit for Art and Culture. The Spanish government also officially recognized the work of Betsy Westendorp. In 1976, the King of Spain, Juan Carlos, bestowed on Betsy the Lazo de la Orden de Isabel la Católica. To quote art critic and writer Cid Reyes, all of Betsy's life has been a celebration of her art. Her art was the one true source of unending joy, delight, and happiness, all of which are reflected in her numerous artworks in various genres.
Wow, that was fantastic. A living genius, a living legend. And I want to thank Miss Kolaiko for the introduction and also for that video of Betsy's life. It's just so remarkable how her artistic passion grew even deeper in later years. And later on, I do hope that we get to hear more from Betsy herself, where she finds the inspiration and how she's able to actually source it out from her inner core to just bring it out on canvas. Next, we have the head of the Retrospective Executive Committee, Manny Miñana, is going to speak. Manny, good afternoon.
Thanks, Karen and Tina. Now, without further ado, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce to you the woman of the hour, the remarkable artist, Betsy Westendorp. She is accompanied this afternoon by her daughter, Carmen Brias. We are so fortunate that you can grace us with your presence, Betsy. Carmen, we welcome you both. How are you doing, Betsy? Carmen, where are you right now?
Right here in front of the screen. At home.
Hi, Betsy.
Hi.
Say hello to all your friends and admirers.
Say hi. Hi.
Thanks so much, Betsy and Carmen. We will see you again in a bit. Now, the Metropolitan Museum of Manila, we are excited to take you on a virtual guided tour of Betsy Westendorp's retrospective exhibition. Watch. This 3D capture was done just a week ago at the Metropolitan Museum of Manila. You're seeing right now an overview of the whole exhibit, which occupies the ground floor of the museum. Betsy, throughout several decades, continuously pursued an artistic practice that carried vigorous passion to create art with poetic presence and aesthetic ideal. The exhibition title, Passages, alludes to her transitions in life and art, taking us through several poignant memories encountered in her life and travels within her natal country, Spain, and her adoptive home, the Philippines, and through the introspections of her identity as a woman, wife, mother, and artist. You can actually experience this 3D virtual tour on your own. We will be sharing a link at the end of the program so you too can explore Betsy's art and life at your own pace. Let me show you how. Let us go back to the entrance of the exhibition. Just click on where you want to go or use the WASD keys to navigate. You may also adjust the camera angle and zoom in and out. This also works on mobile devices. The controls are very intuitive, and this is the next best thing to walking in the museum yourself. You can also use these buttons on the lower left to help you explore. You can check out the dollhouse view of the exhibit, also known as the overview of the floor plan with its labeled sections. You can even measure things to get a sense of scale. As we explore the exhibition, you will see these round buttons. Click on each one of them and you will be able to receive more information about every painting. These tags may also contain photographs and other exhibition notes for you to better appreciate every art piece. Let us continue. We're now seeing the portrait section of the exhibit. As you can observe, Betsy captured her subjects with characteristic grace, imbuing them with a sense of presence. You notice too that Betsy's portraits have that unfinished quality. The background has no decorative flourish at all. Still, the portraits look very refined and dignified. Her choice of color palette here is soft and muted, achieving a contemporary minimalism. This softness is contrasted by her vigorous lines and strokes that render the portrait with an ethereal yet strong quality. Beyond portraits, Betsy also depicted the landscapes and seascapes around her. When she moved to the Philippines, we start to observe more familiar local scenes, inspired by her visits to the countryside, like the Taal landscapes and heritage houses in Vigan. Like many Filipino visual artists, Betsy also painted the barong-barong. These shacks and makeshift homes depict Pasong Tamo, when most of Makati City was still grassland and open space. Betsy also painted seascapes. In her painting's foreground, she did not choose to paint the usual postcard composition of fishermen in their bancas. Instead, she intimately painted the foreground with houses on stilts on water, as if you were right next to it. Let us look closer at one of the seascapes. The red-orange blaze of the setting sun floods the canvas, and the luminous light is evanescent, looking almost like vapor. Betsy achieves a poignant aesthetic intensity to her work, similar to her atmospheric graph paintings that we will see later. Here is a rich underwater scene inspired from Betsy's many visits to to the beaches and waters of Mindoro. We observe her imagined surreal composition of underwater life, vegetation, and colorful corals. With her use of translucent colors of iridescent greens, blues, crimsons, and whites, the painting really expresses the languid movement and liveliness of the Mindoro seabed, a scene one may appreciate when diving or snorkeling in our country's beautiful seas. Betsy is certainly known for her very exuberant paintings of flowers, and most significantly, her orchids. She paints it against a densely packed vegetation and sometimes combines several species like the bird of paradise. From her keen artistic eye, she meticulously studied these flowers through her collection of books on Philippine flora and fauna. She particularly loved the tropical orchids of the Philippines, which possess many unique morphologies. Here is a unique painting among Betsy's body of work. It is a scenic view of her garden pond from her home in Madrid. This composition focuses on water lilies, lotus flowers, and hyacinths emerging from the still pond, with different vegetative growths in its surroundings. The water flows towards a shady spot just beneath a stone sculpture of Kuan Yin, the goddess of compassion and mercy. Betsy's range of floral paintings extend outside the orchid. She has also captured the common yet invigorating presence of European wildflowers, such as poppies. Her art's expressionist quality shows an intimate composition here of sunflowers. We can observe her rich, vigorous tactile strokes that show natural life in its eye-catching vibrancy and beauty, rendered in yellow. Atmospherographs, derived from atmosphere, points to the description of the atmosphere and its many qualities, a term coined by the eminent Spanish art historian and critic Elena Flores, who was a keen observer and admirer of Betsy's art. Miss Flores was pertaining to the horizon of landscapes and cloudscapes of Betsy's canvases, implying sunrises and sunsets based on the emergence or the diffusion of light commingling with clouds. It evokes the feeling, too, of something beyond, belonging to a spiritual realm. Moving with an aesthetic spontaneity, Betsy Westendorp catches moments of subliminal beauty from an aerial perspective, from the somber, contemplative contrasts of light and darkness to the phantasmagoric collisions of colors. These clouds seem to have its own character, moving like dancers with poetic grace and vigor, intimating to us the many possible emotions the artist was feeling at the time her canvases were created. The exhibit also features a recreation of Betsy's studio. The materials you see here, her easels, paints, brushes, as well as the photographs on the wall, were all taken from her home studio in Makati City. Even if she is at her 90s, Betsy continues to paint atmospherographs and other subjects on large canvases, some measuring up to 14 feet. Given how tedious and physically rigorous painting large canvases can be, Betsy uses a simple device, a steel frame equipped with a motorized pulley that allows her to conveniently roll up and down any portion of her expansive canvas. For Betsy's recreated studio, we wanted to show you the artist herself in action. Click this tag and you can see Betsy in quiet concentration while working on her last large-scale work completed 3 years ago, Homage to Life, a painting you can also see in this exhibition. Thank you very much for joining us on this 3D virtual tour, and we hope you can continue to explore this retrospective further after this program. Before we proceed with the program, we would like to acknowledge our partner organizers for the exhibit, Pioneer Insurance and the De La Salle University Publishing House. Most especially, we would like to thank our private sponsors, without whom the Betsy Westendorp retrospective will not have been possible. Ramon Antonio, Jaime and Bea Zobel de Ayala, Antonio and Maricris Brias, Teresita C. Coson, Rosemary Toda Delgado, Raul and Joanna Francisco, Randy and Irene Francisco, Antonio and Linda Lagdameo, Jaime Ponce de Leon, Alfonso and Yolanda Reyno, Beatriz Rojas, Carlos and Isabelita Salinas, Wilfred and Kerry Uiteng Su, Randy and Pia Young, Jay and Ana de Ocampo of Wildflower, Steve and Lolly C. of Focus Global Inc., Rick and Bonnie Santos of Santos Knight Frank, Bienvenido Tantoco Sr. of SSI Group Inc., Rico and Nena Tantoco of Santa Elena Golf and Country Estate, and Alay Kay Inang Maria Foundation. Once again, on behalf of the museum and the retrospective committee, we thank you all for your generous support. We could not have done this without you.
Wow, that was fantastic. And I have to say, just watching it right now live on Facebook and reading the feedback of those watching, I think many have known Betsy Westendorp's work, but then it's just stunning when you see it one after the other. And I'd also have to congratulate Manny for how he described each work and how he took us through this journey. I have to say, Manny, you have a new career. Other than being an architect, your new career is actually touring and taking people through art. It's fantastic. Now, what I've seen is not just Betsy's God-given talent, but clearly you see her love and relationship for the Philippines, but also her love for color. Not many artists are gifted with that kind of balance, appreciation, and mixture for using color in this way. So I would like to first welcome to our discussion. We have Betsy and Carmen. I want to say hello to you both.
Hello, Karen.
Hello, Betsy. And can I just say, can you please tell your mother what an honor it is? She is a God-given talent, a precious gem.
You are a God-given talent, a precious gem. Says Karen Davila.
Wow. It's in fact, what's even amazing is at 93, she's joining us this afternoon. I have to say that's a gift in itself. Well, I know, Carmen, you will be answering these questions for Betsy. It's more than 60 years of painting, and it takes not just an incredible amount of dedication and passion, but more than that, it's actually also finding the inspiration. After painting so long, many artists can seem tired or quite repetitive in their work or uninspired. So how have you been renewing your creative spirit, Betsy? How does she do it, Carmen?
This is what she answers. I have been able to renew my creative spirit because I love painting. And when you love something very much, there is really no effort. You can get tired, but the energy comes back with a little rest.
I love that. The energy comes back with a little rest. It's like all you need is pause. Now, she started her career, of course, with portraits, and then Betsy was known for her love of painting flowers. And now we know it's orchids. I personally didn't know that. But what makes orchids a very fascinating subject? Why orchids? And what's so unique about the beauty of flowers?
orchids have some kind of a mysterious approach. There are so many varieties in shape and color. I have the sensation that every time we hold them in our hands, they are trying their best to give us the impression that they are beautiful in order to please us.
Wow. Okay, and I'm gonna ask you this, Carmen, just a quick break. Did your mother always want to be an artist? Was that her dream?
And yes, ever since I can remember her saying that she started painting since she was around 5 or 6. And then she started doing portraits of her family, her brother, her sister, her friends. Yes, she was born a painter.
Yeah. And then, of course, the love for the Philippines is a big subject of her art. And many have talked about the beauty of the Philippine sunset, the Philippine sunrise. Would you say that they've changed from when you first painted them then and now? Or maybe it's more accurate to ask if the way you yourself see them has changed, because you have been studying Philippine sunrise and sunsets for many years now.
Certainly they have changed because the environment has changed. When my husband brought me to the Philippines, one of the first things he did is take me to Manila Boulevard during sunset. He was so proud to show me for the first time the beauty of the colors up in the sky. He took me there every day after office hours to watch one of the beautiful miracles of nature, the Manila Bay sunset. Later, I also discovered the Manila Bay sunrise.
Yeah, and it's just so wonderful to hear this, Carmen, because Filipinos tend to be very hard on their own country, frankly. I mean, and coming from the news, I myself know this, that we tend to focus on the negative at times, on what's wrong, what needs to be changed. And then you come across the work of Betsy, and it's just all love and beauty for the Philippines. So it's actually very refreshing. Now, beyond your paintings, Betsy, of land and seascapes, I have to say, and this is my personal favorite, the atmospheric paintings. I mean, they are stunning, stellar, incomparable, moving to look at, the mix of the colors. It's very emotional. And in the video, Manny mentioned that you transmuted your paint also into these canvases from your very tragic beginning. But I can't help but wonder, what was the feeling like, Betsy, once they were finished, or when you gave them away, or when you lent them out, considering the emotional attachment associated with these atmospheric paintings?
I cannot explain why or when I started painting the clouds, or atmosferografias, as they call them. But what I do remember is that when my daughter Isabel was passing away, I was painting red clouds, and someone asked me, "Why are you painting a tunnel?" Later on, I realized that without knowing it, that I had captured the moment when my daughter disappeared inside the tunnel.
Wow.
That's what you call catharsis, or what they have named as passage from death to another life.
Wow. And I'm curious, Carmen, I'm sure you were a very young girl, but when did you first see your mother start discovering and moving to such vibrant colors in her artwork?
Well, I don't really know, because she's painting all her life. So
Yeah.
She has not done very much black and white. She's always used color. She draws very well, and she has done portraits in charcoal, very, very good ones too. But she prefers to use color all the time, and I can't tell you. I've always seen her painting. So
Yeah, yes, of course. Usually it's family. It's usually family that gets to either dissect them the least, I'd have to say. Okay, now I would like to ask Betsy a big question here. What do you think is the role of art and of artists in today's society. And what would be interesting is, especially Carmen, during the pandemic now, when there's just so much focus on basic needs, physical needs right now, some would say art wouldn't have a role, or some would consider it frivolous or very elitist at this point. But what is the role of art and an artist in today's COVID and post-COVID world?
Well, what she has answered is, I wish the artists of today would try to think more about their fellow men and not so much about themselves.
Yes.
I wish I could bring more happiness to people through my painting.
How beautiful. Yes, that's so beautiful. Betsy, we would like just to give you from the bottom of our hearts, the ultimate gift of love and admiration and utmost respect right now. So please let her know that, Carmen. Please. Okay. Thank you.
I will.
Yeah. And on a side note, Carmen, are you a gifted artist yourself? Can you paint?
Yes, I can also paint, but it's
Wow.
a different way.
Yes, but I think at the end of the day, it's there's something genetic about either art or music or singing that's passed on for generations. Thank you so much, Carmen, and it was nice to hear from you and just seeing Betsy beside you. I mean, just this whole retrospective. There's a 3D virtual tour of the exhibit. Your art can reach a lot more people. And to our audience right now on Facebook, we invite you to send your messages to Betsy via Zoom chat, Facebook, and the YouTube comment section, or even email them to info@metmuseum.ph. You may also share with us your reflections on or impressions of Betsy's art. Okay, meron ka bang pabaon, Carmen and Betsy, before we go? Do you have a message just to give to all your fans and admirers?
Well, thank you first of all for listening to us, for seeing your program, which I'm sure they're very pleased to have met you too, Karen, because you do your work beautifully. And I don't know what to say. I mean, what do you say to the people who admire you so much? Huh? You cannot explain. You cannot explain gratitude.
Yes. Well, first of all, before we go, and I turn it over to Tina, I'd like to say, Carmen, that I think God's biggest gift right now is, other than your mom's work and legacy, is that she sits right beside you healthy. I mean, coming from the pandemic, we know how many people have suffered, especially elderly people. And just seeing her right now, it makes me feel, frankly, so blessed and happy, to see her right there healthy with you. I think what a gift. And biblically speaking, God says to bless you with a long life is his greatest gift for all. So Betsy and Carmen, thank you.
Thank you too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'd like to turn it over to Tina. And before I do, I'd have to say, Miss Tina Colaiko, congratulations for this. I think this is a coup that you've done, especially during this time. And I wish you more success. And Tina, one quick question before you close. I wanted to ask you, people on Facebook that may want to see the paintings in person, if they're a small group or they call you, is that even possible, Tina?
Very much. Very, very possible, Karen. To our Zoom audience, you will be redirected to the 3D virtual tour once you exit the webinar. And the tour and the video and the biographical video will be accessible from our Facebook and our social media channels, as well as our Met Museum website. So we hope that people will just follow us. And we thank you, Karen, for so generously giving us your precious time to host, for being such a wonderful host, no? And for having that wonderful chat with Betsy Westendorp and her daughter Carmen. Thank you. So once again, on behalf of the Met Museum and the Retrospective Committee, It has been our great honor to organize and present passages celebrating the artistic journeys of Betsy Westendorp. Thank you to all our audiences for being with us this afternoon. And we look forward to having you join us again when we launch the retrospective monograph this February, written by Cid Reyes and published by the De La Salle University Publishing House. We would also love to have your feedback so we can keep on improving and expanding our offerings, public programs and offerings. See you all in our next events, including our series of art education and art appreciation sessions called Art in Focus, with discussions and lectures on selected works from the retrospective and also from the museum's art collection. So see you soon enough. Stay well and stay safe.